1929. A dust-choked library inside Istanbul's Topkapi Palace. A Turkish naval officer unrolls a fragment of gazelle skin and freezes. He is staring at a map of Antarctica drawn in 1513, 3 centuries before any human officially saw the continent, and showing its coastline without a single sheet of ice. By the end of this video, you will learn what the United States Air Force confirmed about that map in 1960 and why they buried the answer. The man who drew it was Piri Reis, an Ottoman admiral feared across the Mediterranean. He was a pirate turned imperial cartographer, a sailor who had crossed every known sea of the 16th century. In 1513, working in the port city of Gallipoli, he compiled a world chart using, by his own admission, 20 older source maps. Some were Portuguese, some were Arabic, and some, he wrote in the margins, came from the time of Alexander the Great. Only a fragment of his original map survives. The rest was lost, burned, or stolen across 4 centuries of war. What remains shows the western coast of Africa, the eastern coast of South America, and a long, southern landmass curving beneath the Atlantic. For decades, scholars assumed this southern coastline was a guess, a flourish, a medieval mapmaker's habit of filling empty space with imagination. They were wrong. The map sat untouched in the Ottoman archives for over 400 years. Then, in 1929, the director of the Turkish National Museum, Halil Edhem, was cataloguing dusty manuscripts when the Gazelle Skin slipped from a forgotten folder. He recognized the handwriting immediately. Within months, photographs were sent to scholars in Berlin, Paris, and Washington. The reaction was confusion. The southern continent on the map did not match any known 16th century geography. It matched something far older. The first clue came from the bays and inlets along the southern coast. They were drawn with the kind of detail only a navigator who had personally sailed those waters could produce. Mountains rose where mountains should not rise. Rivers emptied into the sea at precise locations. And when modern geographers overlaid the map onto the actual continent of Antarctica, the matches were not approximate. They were exact, but only if you removed the ice. In 1956, an American cartographer named M.I. Walters brought the map to the attention of Captain Arlington Mallory, a former intelligence officer who had spent the war studying Viking navigation. Mallory took one look at the southern landmass and made a stunning claim. This was not South America. This was Queen Maud Land, a region of Antarctica that, according to every geological survey, had been buried under thousands of feet of ice for at least 6,000 years. Mallory brought the map to the United States Hydrographic Office. He asked them to verify his findings. The cartographers there, professional skeptics by training, expected to dismiss the claim within hours. Instead, they spent weeks running comparisons. The conclusion shocked them. The map's southern coastline matched seismic surveys of the actual subglacial bedrock of Antarctica, surveys that had only been completed in 1949 using sound waves that could pierce ice. Enter Professor Charles Hapgood. A history professor at Keene State College in New Hampshire, Hapgood was not a cartographer or a geologist. He was a teacher who asked his students dangerous questions. In 1959, he assigned a class project to investigate the Piri Reis Map. What his students uncovered consumed the rest of his career. Hapgood would spend the next decade writing a book that mainstream academia tried, and failed, to bury. Hapgood wrote to the United States Air Force Reconnaissance Technical Squadron at Westover Air Force Base. He asked them, plainly, to evaluate the map. On July 6, 1960, Lieutenant Colonel Harold Z. Ohlmeyer wrote back. His letter is now famous. He confirmed that the lower portion of the map depicted the Princess Martha coast of Queen Maud Land. He confirmed the geographical detail was correct. And then he wrote the sentence that changed everything. Ohlmeyer wrote that this could only be possible if the coast had been mapped before it was covered by the ice cap. He stated that the ice in that region is now approximately 1 mile thick. And he admitted, in writing, that the United States Air Force had no idea how the data on the map could be reconciled with the supposed state of geographical knowledge in 1513. The letter was filed. The Air Force never publicly commented again. Hapgood pressed further. He compared the Piri Reis Map to other medieval charts, the Orontius-Phineas Map of 1531, the Mercator Map of 1569, the Bosch Map of 1737. All three depicted Antarctica with disturbing accuracy. The Bosch map even showed the continent as two separate landmasses divided by a waterway, a configuration only confirmed by Sub-Glacial Radar in the 20th century. Someone, somewhere, had known about Antarctica long before the modern world. But who? In 1958, Hapgood proposed a theory so radical it ended dinner party conversations across academia. He called it Earth Crustal Displacement. He argued that the entire outer shell of the planet had slipped, perhaps as recently as 12,000 years ago, sliding Antarctica from a temperate latitude into the polar zone. Albert Einstein himself read Hapgood's manuscript. Einstein wrote the foreword. He called the idea fascinating and worthy of serious consideration. If Hapgood was right, then somewhere on Earth, around 10,000 years before Christ, a civilization existed with the maritime capability to survey an entire continent. They had ships capable of polar voyages. They had instruments to calculate longitude, a problem European mariners did not solve until 1761. They had mathematics, astronomy, and projection techniques rivaling the Renaissance. And then, like a candle blown out, they vanished. This is where the whispers of Atlantis began. Hapgood himself rarely used the word. He preferred the phrase ancient sea kings. But his readers connected the dots. Plato had written, in 360 BC, about a vanished island empire that controlled vast oceans before being destroyed by floods and earthquakes. He claimed his source was Egyptian priests, who said the catastrophe occurred 9,000 years before their time. The dates lined up uncomfortably well. Then there is the question of Piri Reis's source maps. He wrote, in his own marginal notes, that his oldest references dated to the era of Alexander the Great. Alexander, in 332 BC, founded the city of Alexandria. Alexandria housed the greatest library the ancient world ever assembled. That library burned, repeatedly, between 48 BC and 642 AD. Some scholars believe Ottoman scribes inherited surviving fragments, including charts of a world that no longer existed. Even more chilling, the projection technique used on the Piri Reis map appears centuries ahead of its time. Modern analysis suggests it employs a form of spherical trigonometry. Some researchers argue the map was originally drawn using a center point near Cairo, Egypt, specifically aligned with the Great Pyramid of Giza. Whoever designed the original source charts understood that the Earth was a sphere, and knew its dimensions, thousands of years before Eratosthenes was credited with the discovery. Mainstream academia, predictably, pushed back. Skeptics argue the southern coastline is simply a stretched and distorted version of South America's east coast, mislabeled by a confused cartographer. They point out that Piri Reis had no concept of Antarctica because Antarctica had not yet been named. They argue the resemblance to Queen Maud Land is pareidolia, the human brain finding patterns where none exist. It is a clean, comfortable explanation. It is also incomplete. Because the skeptics cannot easily explain the Orontius-Phineas map. They cannot explain the Bosch map. They cannot explain Ohlmeyer's letter. They cannot explain why a 16th century admiral drew rivers in their correct locations on a continent he had never seen. And they cannot explain why, when Hapgood's findings were quietly reviewed by professional cartographers in the 1960s, several of them privately admitted he might be right but refused to say so in print. The fragment we possess is only the western third of the original map. The remaining two-thirds, depicting the Pacific, Eastern Asia, and presumably the rest of Antarctica, have never been found. Some historians believe they were destroyed when Piri Reis was executed by the Ottoman Sultan in 1553 for failing a naval campaign. Others suspect the missing sections were deliberately removed, hidden, or are still sitting, unrecognized, in a vault somewhere in Istanbul. What did Piri Reis actually know? In his notes, he wrote that the lands shown on the southern portion were taken from charts whose authors had sailed there themselves. He did not claim to have discovered them. He claimed to have copied them. He believed his sources. And he risked his reputation, in the middle of the Ottoman court, recording details that no one else in his century could verify. He may have been the last man to see the originals. So we are left with a question that has no comfortable answer. Either a 16th century admiral made a series of extraordinarily lucky guesses that just happened to match subglacial radar surveys conducted 4 centuries later, or someone, somewhere, mapped Antarctica when it was still green. The Piri Reis Map does not prove which is true, but it forces us to consider the possibility that human history is far older and far stranger than we have been taught. If this story disturbed you, you are not alone, and there is far more buried in the forgotten archive. Subscribe right now so you do not miss tomorrow's investigation into the underground city in Turkey that housed 20,000 people and was sealed from the inside. Hit the bell. Leave a comment telling us, do you believe Piri Reis copied a map from a lost civilization? Your theory might be featured in our next video. The archive is still open.